What is up, everyone? It's Mr. Michaelxharris, and Sid Meier's Civilization series is a legend, but it's a legend that's constantly evolving. Civilization VII introduces some radical changes, and while some are brilliant innovations, there are others that feel like a step back. So let's explore this new era of Civ and see if it lives up to the legacy. Let's dive into it. For decades, Sid Meier's Civilization has been the name in 4X strategy. It's a series that's practically synonymous with building an empire from the ground up. But one thing that's always been true about Civ is that it changes. Sometimes those changes are small tweaks. Other times they're full-blown revolutions. And not all of those changes have been universally loved. Remember the uproar over hexagonal grids? Or the debates about unstacked cities? Civ fans are passionate, and for a good reason. We're invested in this world-building fantasy. Civilization VII is no exception. It's shaking things up again with some pretty big swings. We're talking about age transitions that fundamentally alter how we play, leaders with personalized skill trees, legacy paths that guide your empire's destiny, and dynamic events that throw curveballs into your carefully laid plans. These aren't just minor tweaks, they're core changes that redefine the Civ experience. The big question is, do these changes work? Does Civ 7 manage to capture the magic of its predecessors while forging its own identity? Or does it sacrifice too much in the name of innovation? That's what we're here to find out. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey through the ages. Let's see if Civ 7 is a worthy successor, or a misstep in the grand tapestry of civilization. Alright, let's talk about the biggest change in Civ 7. Age transitions. Instead of one continuous timeline, the game is now divided into 3 distinct eras: Antiquity, Exploration, and Modern. Think of them as mini campaigns within a larger game. Each age brings new units, buildings, technologies, and even different rules to the table. It's not just a visual change, it fundamentally alters how you approach the game. The idea is brilliant, it keeps things fresh, and the game fresh, and it prevents that late game slog that can plague some Civ titles. And you're constantly adapting, reinventing, and just figuring out your strategy. But it also has its downsides. Your carefully crafted empire, your painstakingly built army, well, they don't entirely disappear, but they do change. Some units are phased out, others get downgraded, and even your cities transform. My first age transition was jarring, to say the least. I had a massive army ready to conquer the world, and suddenly half of it vanished. It felt like a rug had been pulled out from under me, and it definitely is a shock to the system. But the age transitions aren't just random resets. They're tied to another new system: legacy paths. These are essentially your objectives for each age. There are 4 paths: military, think expansion; culture, science, and economy. By completing milestones within these paths, you accelerate your age progress and unlock powerful bonuses, both for your current age and for the rest of the game. It gives you a clear sense of direction, a structured way to pursue your chosen victory condition. Now, some players might worry that this makes the game too restrictive, but are you locked into following these paths? Not at all. You still have plenty of freedom to pursue your own goals. But the legacy paths provide a framework, a set of challenges to overcome, and they actually enhance replayability. Because each age has different objectives. Each playthrough feels distinct. Plus, there are synergies between the paths. For example, a strong military presence can help you secure resources for the economic path. It adds a layer of strategic depth that I really appreciate. Like I said, my first age transition was rough. But once I got the hang of it, I started to see the brilliance of the system. I began planning for the next age, strategically positioning my cities and units, And it adds a whole new dimension for the game. It's no longer just about like building an empire. It's about building an empire that can evolve. It's about adapting to change, overcoming challenges, and forging your own destiny through the ages. And honestly, that's what Civilization has always been about. Now let's talk about another big change. And this one's a bit more controversial. The separation of leaders and civilizations. In previous Civ games, your leader was your civilization. Now they're just distinct entities. You pick a leader, like say, Harriet Tubman, and then you choose a civilization to lead, like the ancient Greeks. Yeah, it's a little anachronistic. Historically, it doesn't really make a ton of sense, but mechanically, it's actually quite interesting. Each leader has their own unique skill tree. As you progress through the ages, you earn points to unlock new abilities and bonuses. Think of it like a light RPG element. These skills can significantly impact your playstyle. Some leaders are better suited for warfare, others for diplomacy, others for cultural pursuits. It adds like a layer of personalization and allows you to tailor your strategy to your leader's strengths. It's a fun way to add more depth to the leader's mechanics, even if it does contribute to some interesting historical pairings. The Civics system is back, and it's as important as ever. As you advance through the ages, you'll earn civics, which unlock powerful social policies. These policies shape your society, influencing everything from your government to your economy to your culture. Choosing the right policies is very crucial for success, and it adds another layer of strategic decision making to the game. Now let's talk about one of the coolest new features, narrative events. Throughout the game, you'll encounter these little story prompts. They present you with a choice. And that choice has consequences. Sometimes it's a simple decision, like how to deal with discovered artifacts and whatnot. And other times it's more of like a complex quest chain that unfolds over several turns. These events add a touch of flavor and help to create a sense of narrative. They make your civilization feel more alive, more like a real society with its own unique history. Some of these events are genuinely funny, some are thought-provoking, and some are just plain weird. But they all contribute to the feeling that you're writing your own story, that you're not just playing a game, but you're crafting a legend. Of course, with all these different leaders and civilizations, things can get a little loose with the historical accuracy. You might have Genghis Khan leading the Romans, or Queen Victoria leading the Aztecs. It's definitely not a history simulator, but I think that's okay. Civ has always been more about the spirit of history than the strict adherence to it. And these little historical oddities, they can actually be kind of fun. They add a layer of whimsy to the game, and they just remind us that at the end of the day, it's just a game. It's a playground for our imaginations and a sandbox where you can create your own alternate histories. All right, let's talk about war. Because let's face it, in Civilization, war is often inevitable. Civ 7 makes some interesting changes to combat. First up, commanders. These powerful units can lead entire stacks of troops, making army management much more streamlined. No more stacks of doom clogging up the map. It's a great way to manage large armies and make maneuvering much more strategic. We also have navigable rivers, which opens up some exciting new tactical possibilities. Imagine sending your fleet deep into the enemy territory, bypassing their defenses and striking at their heart. And finally, cities have fortified districts, making them much more tougher to capture. You can't just waltz in and take a city anymore. You have to actually siege it, taking out those fortified districts one by one. In my experience, these changes make combat much more engaging. It's not just about who has the biggest army anymore. It's about strategy, positioning, and just combined arms tactics. I had some epic battles in Civ 7, with massive armies clashing on land and sea. The new mechanics really force you to think about your unit and your composition and how to just best utilize your forces. It's a definite improvement over previous Civ games. Diplomacy has also seen some significant changes. It's more complex, more nuanced, and honestly, much more engaging. You now have influence points, which you can use to sway other leaders, forge alliances, and even declare war. It adds a whole new layer of strategy to your diplomacy. It's not about just sending gifts anymore. It's about building relationships, leveraging your influence, and playing the political game. I found myself spending a lot of time in the diplomacy screen in Civ 7 than in previous games, and that's a good thing. Now let's talk about the UI. It's a mixed bag. Visually, it's quite clean and modern. The city screens are well organized, and unit information is generally clear, but there are some significant weaknesses. The biggest problem is the lack of tooltips. Many mechanics are not explained clearly, and you're left guessing what certain things can do. This can be incredibly frustrating, especially for new players. I spent way too much time trying to figure out what certain buildings did or how certain mechanics worked. It's a definite area that needs improvement. And finally, let's talk about the AI. It's okay. In combat, it can be a decent challenge, especially if it outnumbers you, but it also makes some questionable decisions, like sacrificing its commanders needlessly. In diplomacy, it's a bit more predictable. It's not a brilliant opponent, but it's not completely incompetent either. It's somewhere in the middle. Hopefully, future updates will improve the AI's performance and make it a more challenging adversary. Now let's talk about religion. It's always been a somewhat awkward system in Civilization, and Civ 7 is no exception. It appears in the exploration age almost out of nowhere, with no real connection to the pantheons you might have established in antiquity. It feels disconnected, like it was tackled on as an afterthought. It's primarily there to generate cultural points for the legacy path, and then it just disappears in the modern age. It's a missed opportunity, I think, and religion could have been a much more integrated, meaningful part of the game. But in its current state, it just feels like a shallow, somewhat pointless mechanic. Moving on to happiness, it's been revamped in Civ 7, and it's now a much more powerful force. A happy populace means faster growth, increased productivity, and a stable empire, which is expected. But an unhappy populace, well, that can lead to serious problems. Unhappy cities can revolt, crippling your economy and even leading to open rebellion. It's a constant balancing act, managing your happiness levels and ensuring that your people are content. It adds a layer of challenge to the city management and makes you think carefully about your expansion strategies. Influence is another crucial resource in Civ 7. You generate it from various sources, and you can use it for a multitude of purposes. In diplomacy, you can use influence to sway other leaders, forge alliances, and even manipulate city-states. But it's also essential for war. You need influence to generate war support, which helps to mitigate war weariness and keep your people behind the war effort. Without influence, your war can quickly become unpopular, leading to unrest and even rebellion. It's a valuable resource that you need to manage carefully if you want to succeed in Civ 7. The interplay between happiness and influence is really interesting. They're both interconnected and can have a significant impact on your empire. A happiness crisis can lead to revolts, which can then drain your influence. A lack of influence can make it difficult to manage your empire and wage war effectively. These systems can create some intense and challenging situations, but they can also provide opportunities for more strategic play. By carefully managing your happiness and your influence, you can overcome these crises and lead your civilization to victory. It adds a layer of depth and complexity to the game that I really appreciate. Now let's talk about the world you'll be conquering. The map. Map generation in Civ 7 is okay, but it could be better. The continents, particularly in the continents map type, tend to be a bit blocky and predictable. There's not a lot of variety in the terrain features, and it could feel a bit repetitive. And the customization options, they're surprisingly limited. Compared to previous Civ games, you have very little control over the world you're playing in. You can choose the map type and size, but that's about it. There's no control over rainfall, sea level, world age, or any other tweaks that we've come to expect. It's a definite step back in the terms of customization, and it's something I hope they address in the future updates. The endgame is also a bit anticlimactic. The victory conditions are pretty standard, but they don't always feel particularly satisfying. The science victory in particular feels rushed. You launch a manned spaceflight and that's it. No building a space colony, no exploring other planets. Feels like a missed opportunity to expand on the space race and make it more epic. And the lack of advanced technologies in the modern age contributes to this feeling as well. Where are the computers? Where are the helicopters? It feels like the game stops a bit too early, leaving you wanting more. This lack of advanced technology also creates some historical progression issues. You have civilizations from vastly different eras coexisting with similar technology levels. It just feels a little off. It detracts from the sense of historical progression, and it just makes the game world feel less believable. It's another area where I think Civ 7 could be improved upon. Overall, the map generation, customization options, and endgame content in Civ 7 feel like a missed opportunity. They're not terrible, but they're not as good as they could be. They lack the depth and the variety that I've come to expect from the Civilization series. It's something that I hope that Firaxis focuses on in future updates and expansions. So where does that leave us with Civilization VII? It's a game with some brilliant ideas, some genuinely innovative mechanics, and some questionable choices. The age transitions, the leader skill trees, the revamped combat and diplomacy systems, these are all significant improvements that add a lot of depth and replayability to the game. But the UI issues, the flawed religion system, the limited map customization, and the anticlimactic endgame hold it back. It's not a perfect game, but it's a good one. It's a game that I've enjoyed playing, despite the flaws. It's a game that has me hooked, wanting to come back for one more turn, one more game, and just one more civilization. And the best part? Civilization VII has huge potential. With future updates and expansions, Firaxis can address the game's weaknesses and build upon its strengths. New civilizations, new technologies, new game modes, the possibilities are endless. And the modding community will undoubtedly add their own creative spin to the game, further expanding its content and replayability. I'm excited to see what the future holds for Civilization VII. But what do you think? Have you played Civilization VII? What are your thoughts on the new mechanics? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions on the game, both good and bad. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Civilization content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next step of our journey. Take care.